Hey there, Bracy here. So, I've been thinking a lot about platforms lately because, I'm working on one, right? And the question came up, why bother building a platform? In fact, if you look around, aren't we in kind of a platform crisis? Like all these platforms are kind of moving in and they're taking over ownership of things. You buy something or you rent something or you rent access to things more than anything. And the ownership is gone, and the argument's been made that like it's kind of returning us to this serfdom where kings, lords own property, own land, the things that we want to use or we need to utilize, and we're just kind of renting that space from them, renting access to these things from them. And I think it's fascinating perspective looking at platforms from this perspective. So, for instance, Uber and soon to be Tesla, they're really kind of at Lyft, obviously taking over this ride share kind of model. And right now, it's using other human beings, but with the advancements that they're working on with automated driving, that's easily going to move into just you're renting access to this car to take you from A to B, but you don't actually own the car, and and it's up to the payment system and the algorithms and the infrastructure, the ecosystem that they've built around the ride sharing that will determine whether you have access to it or not. The same thing goes with content online. Disney's gone through and bought up almost all the major properties, and then there's the other ones. I mean, so you've got Disney's streaming application, streaming platform. You've got Netflix streaming platform, Amazon's streaming platform, CBS streaming platform, Hulu as a streaming platform, Showtime, HBO Go. Like there's so many different streaming platforms that you have to rent access to that it really starts to call into question, is there going to ever be ownership of digital content anymore? And then this is further brought into question when you talk about Strata, Google's gaming platform, and they're not the only ones who have attempted this, but they're definitely going to make the biggest mark when it comes to interactive streaming content and buying it just as a subscription and allowing it to be streamed, all the content, any content, be streamed to whatever platform you'd like, whatever screen you'd like, whether that be your phone, tablet, TV via a dongle, or PC, laptop. There's a lot of solutions, and people are ultimately looking at what is going to cost them the least to provide you the most options, the most that they can provide you. And I don't think that our platform is too far out of that range, unfortunately. But I will say that there is an intention to do something that I think is different, and whether I'm able to achieve that intention, it doesn't just come down to my willpower, and it doesn't just come down to my resolve or my grit. It also comes down to like what's my luck, like what resources will I have access to when trying to build this platform. I'm subject to the environment that I'm in and the responsibilities that I have. So I have a family. I'm responsible for providing to them, and ultimately, if I'm trying to do right by the people who are going to utilize the platform that I'm creating, if ultimately it comes down to it, am I going to choose not to do the platform? If I have to make a decision that ultimately pushes the platform closer towards something that's more in line with models of platforms that exist now, versus not being able to make any ends meet and provide for my family. And that might seem like an extreme choice, because you always have a choice. There's always another option, but it doesn't mean that those options are readily available. It also doesn't mean that those other options will fit within the context of the relationships that I have, just fitting into the world that I'm a part of. So I can see how down the line I could make choices that would betray a lot of the intentions that I have now. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do to kind of curtail that is to really fundamentally build this thing in a way that like it's understood from the get-go why these elements are there. And not to keep talking so abstractly, but ultimately on the QPVR platform, so it's digital, it's a virtual environment navigation, right? So you're going from one virtual world to another virtual world. You're just jumping between worlds, and you can do it by yourself or you're doing it with friends. Each world is unlocking new content. And new content that you can access via the mobile app or tablet app or on your PC or whatever device starts to evolve in the future. But ultimately, once you go into a new space, creators have the ability to put content that you can unlock just by discovering that space. You get there and you find a song that you really like. And you step out of the virtual environment and you're in the real world and you're like, I want to listen to that song while I do workout or I'm going to go grocery shopping or whatever. Inside the app, you can just navigate to that room, and inside that room, you click on that room and you'll see whatever content you have access to organized by like a way that would be intuitive, like all music or all photos, all videos, whatever. They may even be like little buttons or folders within the context of that room, but you'll know you've got access to it. You go, you play the music, whatever, right? How are we going to divvy up the rights once people start to pay for that stuff? Like eventually one of the evolutions of the platform is going to be to enable content creators to sell their stuff. So it's not just that you unlock access to this stuff, but you hear a song and you're like, oh, I want that song. Oh, that one's 99 cents. I've got to access that. Will that be an option, or will we be at the point where you're just on a subscription basis? Would you be subscribing to the entire channel? Are you subscribing to just that user? Can we make it so you subscribe to maybe 10 users because they're like $1 a piece? And I don't know, there's some interesting things that you can do, but ultimately the idea is you're gonna have access. This platform ultimately negates the need for multiple access points, multiple apps. Like you won't need a Netflix, you won't need a Spotify, you won't need all these other platforms. Ultimately, if it's constructed right, access to all content can be granted through this one interface. It's a wide platform, but ultimately your access can be granted to a number of different things and organized in a number of different ways that are intuitive to you, or more intuitive to you than the current models and current platforms and current ways of getting content. That like this will call into question, which direction do you want to go? And when I say you, I mean actually the platform and the people who use the platform. Do we want to go in this direction where there's this blanket subscription for all content, or do we want to go in this direction where all content can be purchased, but it could nickel and dime people to the point that like it just kind of exhausts them. They don't necessarily want to do it. I think ultimately what I want to do is in the middle. I want a subscription base that it's an easier path towards the things that people access. It goes to them, and finding some way that even if they're not paying for a subscription anymore, whatever they got access to during the time they had that subscription open, they get to keep. Because ultimately it's a discovery platform and you can only get access to the things that you unlock. So for some people, they'll just kind of want to run through some things. Like, all right, I got a subscription for a month. I'm just going to burn through all these rooms. And ultimately that'll decrease the cost, decrease the amount of money that all these other users get, these other creators get. But I don't know. There's something in there. I'm still trying to work it out, but ultimately I feel like the platform has the capability of exceeding the capabilities of platforms today, just because it inherently can contextualize all different types of digital content, and maybe within the context of these virtual rooms, the Q rooms, these standardized virtual environments, we can find a way that actually grants people access to people who are paying for stuff. But not only do they pay, because like right now, if I pay, I paid a subscription for over 2 years for Spotify, and then we had to pull back for financial reasons. We had to like pull back on all the subscriptions that we're paying for, and all of a sudden we don't have access to the music that we had downloaded and cared about and favorited and all this stuff, and all of a sudden all that money is just out the window, as opposed to if we had purchased those, if we'd made purchases, we would have had at least, I don't know, 15 albums worth of content, something like that. So it's a little frustrating. And so I understand from the consumer point of view how platforms can be frustrating, but at least here's a mark of the intention. This is something that I'm trying to solve, and I hope I'm given the opportunity to actually follow through and solve it. But I understand there are going to be roadblocks that I cannot foresee, and so at least the intention is there to start, and we'll see what that gets molded into. Whatever you do, don't subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Woo! What an ender. Catch you next time.